In the summer of 1845, two of the most advanced ships in the world sailed into the frozen waters of the Canadian Arctic. On board were 129 men, the pride of the British Empire, carrying enough food and fuel to last for years. They were confident, well-equipped, and certain of success. Not a single one of them would ever be seen alive again. This is the story of the Franklin expedition, the greatest disaster in the history of polar exploration. The man in command was Sir John Franklin, a 59-year-old officer of the Royal Navy and a veteran of the Arctic. His mission was to find the Northwest Passage, a sea route through the top of North America that connected the Atlantic to the Pacific. For 3 centuries, this passage had been the obsession of the British Empire. Explorer after explorer had failed to find it. Franklin was sent to finish the job once and for all. He was given 2 ships, HMS Erebus and HMS Terror. These were not ordinary vessels. Their wooden hulls were reinforced with iron to smash through ice. They carried steam engines taken from locomotives, which could push them forward when the wind died. They had heated cabins, a library of more than 1,000 books, and the latest technology of the age, food sealed inside tin cans, 3 full years of it. To the men of 1845, these ships seemed unstoppable. The expedition left England in May to the cheers of enormous crowds. Everyone believed Franklin would sail home a hero within 2 or 3 years, having conquered the one place the empire had never tamed. The mood was pure optimism. No one imagined they were watching these men leave for the last time. In late July of 1845, 2 whaling ships met the Erebus and Terror in Baffin Bay. The crews were in good spirits, waiting for the right moment to cross into the passage. The whalers waved goodbye and sailed on. That brief meeting was the last time any European would ever see the Franklin expedition alive. After that, the ships sailed into the ice, and into silence. For 2 years, England heard nothing. What happened next was pieced together only decades later. By September of 1846, both ships had become locked in thick pack ice near King William Island. The men expected the summer thaw to free them. But the thaw never came. The ice held the ships in an iron grip and would not let go. An Arctic winter is a special kind of hell. For months the sun never rises at all, leaving the world in total darkness. Temperatures fall far below -40. The men were trapped inside their frozen ships, burning through their fuel and their food, waiting for a rescue that no one was coming to give. One brutal winter turned into 2. The first clues to their fate were found on a tiny piece of land called Beechy Island. There, search parties discovered 3 lonely graves. These were the first men to die, during the very first winter, before the ships were even trapped. Their bodies had been buried in the permafrost, and the cold had preserved them almost perfectly for over 100 years. When scientists exhumed these men in the 1980s, the sight was haunting. Their faces were intact, their eyes half open, as if they had only just fallen asleep. Tests on their remains revealed something disturbing, dangerously high levels of lead in their bodies. The lead likely came from the poorly sealed food cans and the ship's own water system, slowly poisoning the crew from the inside. Before the ships left England, photographs were taken of several of the expedition's officers, proud men in their uniforms who would never see home again. What finally happened to them was revealed by a single sheet of paper, hidden inside a pile of stones on King William Island. It was a standard Navy form, filled out twice. The first message, written in 1847, ended with 2 simple words, "All well." But a year later, someone had scrawled a second message around the edges. It said that Franklin was dead, that 24 men had died, and that the survivors were abandoning the ships. In April of 1848, around 105 men who were still alive climbed down onto the ice. Led by Captain Francis Crozier, they abandoned the Erebus and Terror and set out on foot. Their plan was to march south toward a river on the Canadian mainland, hundreds of miles away, dragging heavy wooden boats loaded with supplies behind them across the frozen ground. It was a death march. The men were already starving and weakened by scurvy, their bodies riddled with disease and lead. They had no real hope of reaching safety. One by one, they collapsed into the snow and were left where they fell. Their trail of bodies and abandoned equipment stretched across the ice. Not a single member of the expedition survived the journey. Years later, a Scottish explorer named John Ray was surveying the Arctic when he met a group of Inuit. They told him they had encountered the starving white men and later found their frozen bodies. But their account contained a detail so terrible that it would spark outrage back home. The remains, they said, showed clear signs that the desperate men had eaten their own dead to survive. Victorian England refused to accept it. The idea that British naval heroes could turn to cannibalism was unthinkable. The famous author Charles Dickens publicly attacked John Ray and dismissed the Inuit as untrustworthy savages who were lying. But the Inuit had told the truth. More than a century later, scientists examined the bones and found cut marks left by knives, proof that the final horror had really happened. For nearly 170 years, the ships themselves remained lost, hidden somewhere beneath the Arctic Sea. Then, following the oral history that the Inuit had preserved for generations, searchers finally found them. The wreck of the Erebus was discovered in 2014, and the Terror in 2016. Both sat upright on the seabed, silent and eerily intact, frozen monuments to the men they had carried. 129 men, the flower of an empire that believed it could conquer anything, were swallowed whole by the ice and the dark. Everything that could go wrong had gone wrong. The Franklin expedition remains a chilling reminder that no amount of technology, wealth, or confidence can save you in a place that simply does not care whether you live or die.